Hi, today we're having a conversation on teen dating violence. I would like to thank Kevin Hicks for allowing us to use his facility here. Also, the Concerned Black Men of Prince George's County. My name is Manny Giraldo. I'll be the moderator, and we'll start, and everybody can just say their name.
Jerome McNeil, Dr. James Huntley.
Charles Mitchell, Vice President of Prince George's County Chapter of Concerned Black Men.
Kevin Hicks, President of Concerned Black Men, Prince George's County.
Ronald Harris.
Leroy Chapman.
And Percy Wiggins.
A fact or myth that teen dating violence is not a serious issue.
It's a myth. Big myth.
It's a myth. Myth.
Yeah, teen dating violence is a very serious issue, and sometimes it goes beyond just violence, but it becomes deadly.
Deadly.
And we're seeing this more and more. It does not matter the age, the orientation, the gender. Has anyone seen this yet, experienced this?
But with us being in the school system in Prince George's County, we have kids that come to us and discuss things about violence that they don't discuss with their parents. You know, they trust us.
Right.
And believe me, if you haven't interact with these young adults, these kids that, especially middle school, if you haven't interact with them within the last few years, it would scare you to death. You know, and I was really surprised once we got in there, in the stories we've been hearing from these kids that's happening every day. Stuff you would hear and see on TV. And here we are living it every day with these kids.
And this is between the ages of 12 and 14?
This is the ages between 12 and 14, 8th through 7th through the 9th grade. Yes. Yes.
Are these teens being violent towards each other?
Well, they act out once they come to school.
And once they come to school, do you believe that it could be violence that they're also seeing at home? Maybe they're trying to.
That's where it stems from. This is my opinion.
Okay.
This is where it stems from at home.
TV shows,
Not in TVs, the videos,
reality shows.
Reality shows.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I don't know, the culture of the school is different now because you have a lot of cyberbullying. That's one of the greatest things that we're dealing with in the school system is because kids are doing social media, and a lot of times you have kids getting themselves involved in it because what's happening and what I deal with is that you have students who literally will strip and send their bodies to other people.
Oh yeah.
And then once they get to the boyfriend gives it to the whole school. And when it's that way, then the student ends up, you know, of course, she's going to be very hurt, she's very upset, but that's what you're talking about, a certain type of bullying and also mental, because the boyfriend, someone she's trusted, has put her out to all of the people. So cyberbullying is one of the things that we're dealing with heavily in the school system.
If a person has parents who maybe aren't that active at home, they're busy, and so they've never learned how to respect themselves, how do they learn to respect? Who's going to instill in them they should have that self-respect?
We only have a certain amount of time that we can spend with the, you know, with the young man, or even with youth, period.
Right.
You know, with youth, period. These youth, they have, and let's use time-wise. Okay, 16 hours at home.
Okay.
16 hours at home, 6 hours in school. Okay, we get them what, 1 hour a week or 1 hour a day. So the environment, and I'll use, just like the schools we go to tonight. My biggest problem is you're going to take all these kids that have issues and you're going to lock them into one location. So you're bringing a group of problems where you got a group of kids who think they're better than everybody else in the first place into one group. And the time that we spend with them is not enough time to do anything. And as far as the parents are concerned, the biggest problem with the parents is we don't have time as parents to spend time with our kids. I had this conversation yesterday where dinner time, you sat at the dinner table. You talked about how your day went. You talked about what you did in school. You talked about what was going on. Today, every household I go into, there's a television in the kitchen. And you're not going to tell me that when you're sitting at the table, you turn the TV off.
Yeah.
You know, you just turn on while you're cooking dinner. No, you're sitting there watching TV. Then you tell the kids, look, I'm tired. Go play your video game. And the video games together is what? Weapon game. You don't, every game you see out here that's been sold right now, a weapon game. Some type of violence.
As parents, we're looking back on the teenagers and we're saying, hey, you know, you guys got to be this way, you guys got to be that way. You're not able to do bullying. You're not able to, you know, shouldn't be doing teen violence. But if the kid turns on the news right now, if you put a kid in front of a TV or in front of CNN or Fox News and let them watch it all day long, what do you see on there? These kids they're going to do what we do, not what we say. I've never seen it done any other way. But I watch the news now, and it's a nightmare. I mean, then we get worldwide news now. So now they, you know, these kids are social networking. They're connecting with people across the globe now, and what they see is as human beings, we are violent. You know, but then we say you're not able to put your hands on this person, but then you're not able to go into this rape situation. No, rape this girl, but then you turn on the news and you got politicians raping people now. You got pastors getting into situations right now where, and then you sit back and look at the kid and say, well, you don't do that though. I mean, I just never seen it done any other way. We have to set the example first. Those kids will follow. I guarantee you, because they're following the bad stuff we do.
Yeah.
Well, the greatest influence has got to come from the parents. We go into the schools, and as was said, we have very limited time that we spend with the kids. And to be honest with you, we're seeing some degree of the success, but it's not going to be a large-scale success until we are able to reach the parents. And like you say, you know, some of the parents that have come up, you know, they have not been exposed to the idea of respecting others, you know, and whether it's through our churches or through organizations like Concerned Black Men, we need to be able to reach the parents and kind of get them to think in a different way about how to engage their children.
Kids do know to do right.
Right.
When we bring kids to school, we give them what is called the Student Rights and Responsibility Handbook. This is something we generate to them every year. We go over a code. They have advisory classes where they are taught about respect. They are taught these things, and if you ask them to generally give you a definition, they can. So it isn't that they don't know, it's that the culture has changed. We have to understand that the day and time that we live in, I think the gentleman who said that the social media and all of that plays a heavy part, kids are doing what they see adults do. You know, when you have congressmen and senators who are committing acts, violent acts of crime, and then so it's filtering down not only from the Congress and the senators, but our presidents. And then when you have a president who's engaging and indulging, so then we tell kids, oh, we want you all to do right, but we aren't doing right ourselves. So you see, the whole culture is changing. And so every place has a culture, every school has a culture. And that principal goes in to try to set the climate for that school, indicating what he or she wants in that school. However, but you're dealing with social media. And this is one of the greatest things that we're dealing with in the school when we talk about cyberbullying and when we talk about kids who have no respect, you know, in terms for a young lady. I'm dating this young lady, dating her, taking her to the movies, then I ask her to send me herself on my phone, then I turn around and send it to the whole school. I mean, you talk about loyalty, responsibility. They are learning definitions of words, but because they aren't seeing it so much in the community, they're following what they see instead of what they hear.
And the one thing that we not mentioned, everything that we were saying was all with the kids' negatives. What about those positive things that go on in our community? What about those, the 90%? We don't talk about the
Right.
90%. We talk about the 10%.
10%, mostly.
We've got to go back to where the 90% meant something, unless and until we start to talk about those positive things that's going on in our household, those positive things that's going on in the school. If all that you hear is negative, why would you want to think positive?
One problem seems to be is that people don't consider teen dating violence a serious issue. And I want to read a couple stats right here. It says nearly 1.5 million high school students nationwide experience physical abuse from someone who they're dating. And a 25% of high school girls have been victims of physical or sexual abuse. So it is happening. It's happening on a grand scale. The problem is that only 33% of teens who have been in a violent relationship have ever told anyone. So it's happening to girls, to guys, on a large scale. but either they're too afraid or too nervous to tell someone. How do you combat that if people don't know?
Well, I'm going to step out there for a moment on personal experiences. When my daughter was dating, I wanted to meet her parents. And I feel if your son is violent to my daughter, and I include the parent into their son's behavior and get everyone involved, that would somewhat let the boy know he's not dictating or controlling my daughter alone. Because I'm contacting his parents and letting them know that your son isn't welcome or he is welcome, but I need to bring attention to what your son his influence over my daughter. Because when the cycle continues, he wouldn't want someone beating up on his daughter. So I always go into the house. I want to know who and where he came from.
And what you're reading and the question you asked, why is that? It has always been for years that people were afraid to say, I'm abused. And I guess it's because you go back years ago and you talked about women who were raped and all of that. You find that people, and I don't know if it's in our culture, that just some people are afraid to say that this is going on because they probably think no one's going to believe them, or they're going to be judged because they're in that circumstance. You know, well, why did you go into it? Why did you date this guy? Why did you go out with him? Why? Instead of saying, I was only trying to go out with the guy to have a good time, but he beat me, or she beat me, or she did something to me. So I'm thinking that it could be inherent in the ideology is, I'm not going to say anything about it because I'm afraid I would not be accepted. You know, that has always been an issue for years that people talked about. Some people would not report rape because they thought that when they get in court, they wouldn't be believed. So is that same ideology with us now that children do not want to tell because they feel that they might not be believed?
My question is, here's my question. Do we actually talk to our children about dating anymore? You know, because what I see is whoever you want to date, go ahead. You know, it's like you talking about, you want to meet the other. Parents don't do that anymore. No. You know, they don't even, half the time, they don't even know who their children are dating because they don't show no, they don't show no interest. We don't talk about it. We don't teach, we don't teach our kids about, how to date anymore.
Some parents don't even know their kids are dating.
It's true.
You know, and when you say that a lot of young adults or teens don't report it because they are afraid, that's true. That's true because, especially in rape cases, because a female would think, I've been victimized once, but once I go to court, I'm gonna be victimized again. And when it comes to fellas, I believe a young fellow won't report it is because, not because he's afraid, he's embarrassed.
He's embarrassed.
Ego.
Right.
He's embarrassed.
But we're going to have to develop a definition on dating, the responsibility of dating, because there are some responsibilities.
Right.
And there are some things that kids need to be communicated with before they go out there and date, period.
You have to set the rules. You have to demand the standard. If more of us took the Leroy approach to interviewing the guy and his parents, we would have less problem with
we wouldn't be sitting here.
and violence. So
I think at this table,
it goes back to what Leroy said.
Right.
We have to set the table, and unless and until you set the table in your house among your kids, because when they go out, they're influences. But basically, most of us, those same things that we were taught from our parents as 1 year old, we still have those same basic values.
we talk about teen dating. I'm just coming on the tail end of it now. 3 years ago, my daughter was 17 in high school. I had to keep the young men accountable. I mean, I have a rule with my daughter. It's only going to be one. I want to meet one young man a year. That's it. I don't want to see a whole bunch of guys coming through my house. But I noticed, and come on, the reality to it, guys, we was 13, 14, 15 years old. These kids out here, they having sex. And it's not a new thing. It always has been going on. We went through it. Y'all went through it, different eras than me, but it was the same urges there. The girls to me now are more dominant now. they're more open now. I know the young ladies now are in control of a lot of this. We got a lot of young males getting into sexual situations because of these young ladies are pushing them in that direction, and it's that peer pressure from a young lady. We talk about from the side where a young man's raping a young girl, but you got young women now raping young boys. It may not seem like rape to the boy, but it is. He's been put in a situation where should he use a condom? Should he not use a condom? You know, believe me, girls have the same urges of not wanting to use a condom just like we do. So now this young boy's in a situation where he doesn't understand what's going on. He's dealing with homework. He's dealing with what's going on in his household, what he's watching on TV, and now he got to come out and run his other friends that's having sex now, and now he's got to feel like, should I have sex, should I not have sex? This young lady's ready to have it. Her parents are not home. She wants to invite me over. I'm 14, 15 years old. What do I do? Now, with my daughter, I had to have an open line of communication. I mean, yeah, I had to make sure that this young man was accountable, but I had to make sure she was accountable too. Because trust me, she's not going to come to me when things are going good. She's going to come to me when crap has hit the fan. And that's when she's going to open up. And now I got to figure out the situation. You know, we had an incident when she was in 12th grade. You know, our little boyfriend threw a soda on her. You know, they had whatever they was going through. And they've been, you know, dating for a year. So I know the young man. He's been over. I'm holding him accountable because he knows me. Right. You know, so when she calls me up, Dad, you got to come over here and kill him. And trust me, she don't call me up saying, oh, Dad, we had an altercation, and, you know, can you sit down with him and talk to him? Her mindset is, Daddy, kill him. So when I get the call, I don't get it as, you know, he threw a soda on me. I get it as, he whooped my butt. Oh, Daddy, he put his hands on me. And the first, I got to step back for a second. I had to call my dad. I had to, Dad, calm me down for a minute, because I'm ready to go down there and kill him. The time I get this true story out of it, they had a little argument and he threw a soda on it. She didn't know how to deal with the situation. And that's where the communication fell at. Because, you know, so she's got to say, now, number one, I'm glad she felt comfortable enough to call me and open up on it. But, you know, now I had to juggle this part out because I know this young man now. We sat down and broke bread together. So I know he wouldn't do nothing like that. So I know it was more to the story than just that. But, you know, it's just managing that whole situation on it. And you're going to make mistakes. It's going to happen.
The idea of somebody throwing a soda on a person that they're dating, is that an example of violence?
Oh, yeah.
It's on the low end of the scale. It's on the low end of the scale.
Depends on how, afterwards, now you apologize. It starts there.
It's the beginning of the scale. Because, and the one thing I admire what your daughter did, the first time it happened, she
came to you.
She didn't call you on the 10th time.
Right.
No.
So no, I'm just saying, what happens all too often, the first time things happen, we don't say anything.
You don't tell anybody.
And then it becomes a habit.
Right.
Okay, if you don't stop it when it starts, it's going to fester and it's going to grow. And the fact that you had that relationship with your daughter to where she felt comfortable enough to tell you what's happening. Now, here's the other thing that you mentioned I find very interesting. Using your limited knowledge and your limited experience, you call your dad.
Oh,
yeah.
Who gave you some more information.
Right.
But Kevin, killing won't solve the problem. He gave you some more information so that you could go and deal with the situation, but it started with your communicating with your daughter certain standards, certain things that were allowable and not allowable, because had she not come to you, she could be dead.
I guess so often what happens is that the child never shares that this happened.
Right.
You know?
Right.
And it's almost like they accept it.
Right, and so you feel like you're justifiable in doing it.
Right.
I think the thing that's missing is teaching, because teaching can solve a whole lot. You know, when I was coming up as a kid, we were taught how to treat young girls. We were taught what to do. We were taught, I mean, but you know, the variations as to how people think and what they allow their child to do going on dating. That's why I say you just can't tell a child to go date, because there are responsibilities that goes in here. How do I treat the girl? Do I kiss her on the first date? Do I not kiss her? Do I hold her hand? Can I say certain things to her or can I not? Our parents were there to teach us what and how to respect women, and that's the first thing that should happen before your child date anybody. What are the responsibilities of dating?
But you said it goes back to teaching.
Yeah.
But what if I'm living in a household where I'm constantly seeing my father abuse my mother, and she's accepting it?
And it still goes back to teaching, because if that child has not been taught, if that's all they're seeing, they need to be taught that this is not the way, that is this not acceptable, there's a better way than this, so that child doesn't grow up doing it themselves. Because we do know statistically, if you look at it sometimes, when you talk about a child coming out of that relationship, a guy that may abuse, see his parent abuse, sometimes they have become abusers. We have seen that, because where has the teaching come that was solved that we're going out here and people are dating and they have been violent and they have been violent on this person and on that person because they have not been taught. They have not been taught to respect. They have not been taught to respect women. You all of us at this table, I believe, was taught to respect women.
I just want to harp on something that Kevin said. He mentioned that sometimes the woman is the aggressor, and I think that it's this common misnomer that a man should always be aggressive, but now you have women who are aggressive, and then what do you do when you have a situation where a man does not want to engage in sexual activity, but he feels because of his friends are doing it, or he's going to feel a certain way, he says no.
It's that peer pressure. It's that peer pressure. Okay. It's like me coming to you. Now we're in just a scenario. You're the player, okay? Now I come to you and you know the girl that is coming on to me, and then I come to you and say, man, you know, I can't touch that. What's the first thing you're gonna say?
I'm gonna give you a hard time.
I
might call you gay or something. You know, I'm gonna push
and you know, and it's sad to say that sometimes, I mean, even
They give in.
and sometimes they might not even give in, but they will lie. They will lie and say, I was with this person. You know, just to say, okay, just to fit in.
But when it comes to violence,
We don't
it should
get
never be accepted.
Right.
It should never be a point where you're trying to fit in by, you know, fostering violence on somebody. And people need to know that if they're a victim of violence, they need to tell somebody.
Let me give you a prime example.
Right.
When I was working for Metro, I was working in the subway, and one day this guy was beating up his girlfriend. We intervened. We even called transit police, you know, because it was that bad. By the time transit police got there, girlfriend had said it was none of their business. They got into the middle of this. You need to lock them up.
That's what she said. That they do. But the thing is that is true. And I thought you would say, you know, she would say, it's none of, you know, none of your business. But see what's happening now in our school systems? I don't know if you all know in the past few years that women are the aggressors now.
Oh yeah.
The boy standing over here and not even thinking about it. She goes up to him saying, you know, and this is what we had to deal with. I used to be the chairperson of counseling, of guidance and counseling. We having to deal with what we're dealing with now are female aggressors who's fighting more. They're fighting more than the boys. They're walking up to the guys don't have a chance to come and say, hey, can I? The girls are going up to them. And I'm wondering what is the mentality that is happening in our communities where when I used to come up, you see the guys beating the women, the guys beating the women, the guys beating the women. And is it that the woman isn't taking it anymore, or these young girls have a different mentality than those of their parents? So now they are attacking the guys. They're coming and saying, no, you know, we'll do this, we'll do that. That's the thing we're talking about. Because what is happening is that a lot of women are changing, you know, the gender like a lot of guys.
We had a good conversation today. I appreciate everyone who engaged and everyone who offered their feedback. I think the most important thing is that we go home to our communities and to the Concerned Black Men, to different chapters, to Alfalfa, and I think that the most important thing is that if we have young teens, that we tell them that it's something that shouldn't happen, that it's not right. According to the experts, they say if you do witness an act of violence being perpetrated, do not try to intervene, but you should contact the authorities. And that's always the safest measure, to call the police. And should you notice signs of abuse in someone which you are familiar, you should attempt to engage in dialogue. I think one of the things that we all spoke about today was that the teens who are being abused have a hard time speaking to someone. You guys mentioned that when you go into the school system, they might not be speaking to their parents at home, but they have an easier time speaking to you guys, maybe because you don't live with them, maybe because you're not family, maybe you won't judge them the same. So I think it's important that if we ever do see anybody or meet anyone who might be abused, that you lend that ear to them and tell them it's not right. And the most important thing to remember is that the individual who has already been victimized, they don't want to be judged. I think somebody mentioned that. At one time when you got raped, you didn't want to go to court because then you felt like you were almost getting victimized a second time. Certain questions about your sexual past, and people are going to say things to you. And one reason that the teens always say that they don't tell their parents about the abuse is that they fear that their parents won't trust them, or that they might think that they're making it up, that this simply doesn't exist. I think 81% of parents don't actually believe that teen dating violence is an issue. So you have kids who just don't know where to turn. And so again, it's trying to lend that ear, and if you meet a kid who maybe shows some of those signs, that you lend that ear. And there are a number of hotlines and resources and websites, and call those numbers and visit those scenes and just continue to be active. Again, I want to thank Kevin for letting us use this facility, Annie's Art Gallery. I want to thank the Concerned Black Men of Prince George's County for giving us your time and your thoughts and your wisdom.
Our pleasure.
And it's the issue that hopefully will change for the better.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you guys.
We have shared many views and ideas during this discussion, some of which many of you might share. However, there are a few facts that I want to leave you with. Teen dating violence affects everyone. It does not matter gender, race, social class, or sexual orientation. It is not a respecter of persons. Interpersonal violence is never the victim's fault. The victim did not provoke or ignite the violence, and victims have no control over being abused. While violence is detrimental to everyone, for teens, it is very harmful since these adolescents have not yet completely matured. They are still developing psychologically. This may be their first experience with romance, love, or sex, and as such, it directly influences their perceptions and behaviors in future relationships.